Thanks for joining this panel. I'd love, just as a starter, to go down the row, except for you, Ted, because you're male. No, I'm just joking. I'd love to go down the row, and maybe you could share a little bit about your personal journey and story about becoming an investor as a female. One of the things I'd like to share and to talk about some in front of the group is the dearth of female investors. There's not enough female CEOs in women-led ventures, but there's certainly not enough women in early stage finance and investing. So I'd love to hear each of your story about that path for you and the experience.
So I worked at several startups, and one of the last startups that I worked at that exited was a company called Ironport, and I made a good amount of money there, and my husband at the time is a professional investor, and he also co-founded Ironport. And so I told him, you know, I don't just want to do something typical with what I earned here. You know, I would really like to invest this money. Can you teach me how? And he said, absolutely. So we went on this journey together, and we've split up and basically divided our responsibilities as an investment team. So I do things like this. I get on stage. My husband is very antisocial. And I'm the more social half, and so I go out and I find investment leads for us. And it's actually worked out quite well. So we make a pretty good team.
At least your sweater's antisocial a little bit. So.
It's Instagram.
That's great.
I never thought I would end up as an investor. I actually met the people who I now work with while I was pitching a business myself. And I thought I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I still do want to be an entrepreneur. But I think, you know, joining an early stage venture firm is my way of trying to bring more women to the table. While I can't do it myself right now because I'm doing this right now, hopefully having one more of us on the other side of the table is helpful.
So I started investing in companies maybe about 14 years ago, in early stage companies because, as I said at the beginning of my remarks, when I started Springboard, I also started an investment early stage investment company called Bull Cap Ventures, and a participant in Bell Capital. And there are lots of, I really tried to work with women putting their money behind women in different groups of investing together, because there's a lot of human capital within the network of those investors, and it's good for due diligence. It's good for introductions. It's you know, they actually put the money and the work into the companies that they're investing in. So all male angel investors do the same thing. It's just that women had to learn how to do it. So we thought we could learn together. So that was 13 years ago. And now I'm also a venture investor. It's something that you have to have an appetite for some risk, but most people who have some capital available can allocate a certain portion of their capital in a risk category. So that's kind of our story, and we think we can really fuel the economy. I think women really are the drivers of the next new economy because they haven't been players yet in a large part in the market, but we are gathering in numbers and in strength.
Yeah, and I love the
so
peer-based model.
If you have a company someday, maybe we'll invest in you, just if you're good enough. Well, we had 2 Springboard investors here today, so I was really pleased to see that among, you know, yes, the first and the last. So.
Yeah, and I think Village Capital is a great peer and collaborative model for investing, so it's great to see what you guys have done there. Ted, I actually do have a question for you, even though you're a guy. And it relates to some of what you do at InVenture. I don't know if everyone knows a little bit, but maybe you could explain some. And I think the related question I have is the importance and the impact of funding women in the developing world, and the impact of that, and some of the work that you're doing at InVenture that has helped in a lot of ways around that.
InVenture makes cell phone-based applications, traditional feature phone applications, to do personal money management, so you can SMS or voice in your income and expenses. That then builds a financial identity, which then allows for credit to be extended and access to services. earlier I'd worked in Bangladesh, and on all the microfunding we did, money going into the female leading the family would immediately flip power and authority in a very understandable change. It wasn't problematic about who could then be making decisions. And so starting from that bottom up all the way to the businesses that are growing around. All these businesses, many small businesses are cash only. And so you could have a lot of cash flow going on, but without any transactions or recording of that, then there is no credit or proof of your success or viability for a loan. I'm a little stumbling on this because it is both male and female equally receiving this, but it's so much more powerful for the women because of this proof of worthiness of credit, and is much more transformative an event.
So where do you see some of the opportunities going for women to be getting into investing? There's a couple of groups I think are interesting. VilCap is very interesting. There's the Pipeline Fellowship. I don't know if you guys have seen that. It's a group that's looking to create a network of mentorship to help other women become angel investors. Do you see anything out there developing, or do you see anything that should be happening in the world of early stage investing to help women get more involved?
Well, you mean as investors?
As investors, yes.
Yeah. Yes, there are some wonderful training programs that, like the Kauffman Foundation has out there for learning how to be a responsible angel investor, early stage investor. Programs like that are very important, I think, for people to go, because I myself made a lot of mistakes in the beginning, and I think that everybody does, because you sort of go with, oh, I think that's a cool idea. That sounds really great, and I look at them and I put a little money in there, and all of a sudden, you feel like Johnny Appleseed or Janie Appleseed putting, and you say, well, wait a minute, that may not be a good strategy. I know that Ron Conway, and I was an angel investor with Ron, and there are people that just spread a lot of money around and say, well, some of this is going to work out. But for most individuals, that's not a good strategy. A good strategy is first to learn what it takes to be a credible early stage investor, and there are courses on that now. There are institutions like the Kauffman Foundation that have very good training for that, and join groups of other angel investors so that you can work with them and learn from them. I think those are the best ways to really learn and to really study the market. There's such a big difference from when I started at the turn of the last century. That I'm not talking about like the First World War or anything like that. It was only 1999. But there's a huge difference of what is transparent today versus what was even transparent a little over a decade ago. So there's a lot you can learn online as well. So that's my suggestion.
Great.
Well, as an angel investor, we constantly ask each other, why did you invest in that company? What did you see in those founders? So I would go to a site like AngelList and look at angel investors that you may admire and follow their deals. And then maybe if you could meet them, ask them, what motivated you to invest in X, Y, or Z company?
Yeah, I think my thought was similar of, I think a lot of it is a bit unstructured and a bit kind of on an ongoing basis. One of the beautiful things about living in Silicon Valley is that people are generally very receptive to questions, and you can walk up to almost anybody or email them or something and say, hey, why'd you do that? Or, hey, can I get coffee? Or, hey, I saw that you did this thing and I'd really be curious to know, can I get 5 minutes of your time? And I think people more often want to say yes before they want to say no. So that's how I usually see it working. I'm not, personally aware of a lot of groups that are teaching angel investing, but I'm not actively looking for that myself right now. So I think that the way I see it done and the way I've been learning my whole life, I guess, is just by asking the questions.
There's actually an expert in this right in the audience over here, Trish Costello. Would you raise your hand, Trish? Trish ran the Kauffman Fellows program and training people to be venture investing, but knows very much about the Kauffman programs work there. So anyone wants to know, you can flock to Trish at the end of this.
And that's one of the things that we do at Crowdfunder is make sure to have early first money in or lead investors on a variety of the deals that we show to our investors. And in the near future, we'll likely be able to open that up to a broader audience of the public. For now, it's still accredited investors. I'd also like to get your feedback and experience for the entrepreneurs here, the women that are entrepreneurs. I think for some entrepreneurs, especially first-time fundraising entrepreneurs, they don't know a lot about what they don't know about fundraising. And I think they don't quite perceive what it's like to be the 10th pitch in a day and having been pitched 2,000 times in your life as an investor. What are the things that you see that stand out for women who pitch excellent in a really great way? And what are the things that stand out when you meet a women entrepreneur? And then on the flip side of that, what are the biggest common mistakes that you could help them avoid making?
I'm going to make a generalization here, but most of the women that I meet that I get pitched from are like 1,000 times more prepared than all of the guys that pitch me. So, you know, I think that that's a good thing, but at the same time, you know, I worry about how much time and effort went into those presentations, and, you know, but it always astounds me, even going to conferences that are mostly led by women. You know, I get these agendas and these phone calls beforehand to prepare for them, and like all of these amazing things that I don't see, you know, at male-led conferences. So women are generally very prepared. I do think that, you know, my number one piece of advice, which goes back to what you said, is angel investors and professional investors are pitched constantly. And just keep that in mind when you go and talk to an investor, that you might be the 10th, 11th, 12th person. And also when you send an email to an investor, and if you don't get a response, please do not send 10 more emails. Usually a no response is they're passing, most likely, or you just got buried, but it's not a good idea to just keep emailing over and over again. I see that a lot. And then sometimes when I respond, it escalates sometimes into anger. That's never a good thing either.
Thank you for asking that question. I think it's an important question to ask. I totally agree with you. Almost every single female entrepreneur I've seen is infinitely more prepared than men. And it is a generalization, but I do believe it to be true. I don't think it's a good thing. And the reason it's not a good thing is because, you know, we were saying earlier, actually, of, you know, I wanted to say something short, or I wanted to write something short, but I didn't have enough time. And so that's what ends up happening. Is that who said that? Thank you.
Mark Twain.
We were trying to figure it out. There we go. Okay, so quoting Mark Twain, obviously. You know, I think it's good to know the answers and good to know the data and good to know what you're working on, but it's easy to get buried in that data, and that makes your pitch, you know, it does yourself a disservice, quite frankly. The best pitches that we see from men, women, young, old, doesn't matter, are very concise. They are very simple. They can stand up and in one sentence, just like a few of the people who did it today did, say, this is my business, this is why it's important, this is why it's a huge opportunity, and you would be so lucky to invest in me. And I think it's that last part that, as a generalization, men do better than women that I see on a day-to-day basis, is that men do a great job of coming in and saying, hey, here's this great idea, and I don't have all the answers, but that doesn't matter because I'm going to figure them out and I'm going to do a great job. And women say, here is this great idea, here's what I know, and here are the list of things I have no idea what to do, and I want to be really open with you about the things that I don't know what I'm doing. And then, you know, I'm like, yeah, I'm with you, I get it, right? But a lot of the other guys in the room were like, I don't know if she knew what she was talking about. And so I think that while it's good to know your strengths and your weaknesses, I oftentimes give the advice to female entrepreneurs of, when you walk into a room to pitch a group of institutional investors, or angels for that matter, you should feel like you were being the most arrogant version of yourself that you have ever been. And if you walk out feeling anything other than that, you probably didn't do a very good job. And that's something that's hard for me, too, on a day-to-day basis, where you want to be liked and you want to be agreeable and you want to engage with someone, but when you're pitching, you're selling. And you're not selling your business, you're selling yourself.
Excellent.
Good advice.
That was excellent advice, I thought, and that's what we see at Springboard, hundreds and hundreds of companies by women. First thing we have to tell them, we have to have them learn to love the sound of their own voice. and promote themselves and, you know, speak. And that is not easy for women to do. That is one of the most difficult barriers for them to get over, is really, you know, be really forceful, have a strong voice, believe in yourself, promote yourself, right up on top. You have to do that. If you can't do that, you're out of there. 30 seconds, they're on their Blackberries or whatever they're on these days, you know, and you're lost. Second, I would say, though, women need stronger knowledge of their own financials. It's not in your pitch that you're going to do a whole big financial analysis, but when you go onto the meetings after that, you have to have more real understanding of your own revenue models. Men and women don't often know what their own revenue models are really that they intend to have. And yes, they can change and modify as you go through a business because you're iterating. But that is something that we see among women that we always have to work on strengthening. Know your own, you know how your business model works.
Ed, how would you like to critique women?
We won't judge you. We want to hear what you
I was going to try and bolster my confidence to say the issue that they brought up, which is go in with a confidence and really be totally. Don't when you go in and pitch, don't go look for consensus building. You know it. That's why you're in there, and that's why you're have so much confidence to go in there. So don't try and go seek consensus building mid-pitch. Like, that's for afterwards or to follow up on the emails or whatnot. But you have an offer to give them. They can take it or leave it. But the selling comes from within you.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. And I'll also add to it, there's a difference between confidence and arrogance. And confidence is, I feel, not having to seek someone else's validation, but it's not being dismissive or challenging someone on something that you don't really know. And so I think there's a fine line, but confidence is something that also just kind of exudes and is subtle. We're running a little over, so you guys did a fantastic job and gave some very specific advice. So thank you. Give them a round of applause.